call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, September 16th at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call to establish a quorum, Amy.
Supervisor John Stavenus.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Jim Nellen.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Let's go to meet and greet. We have a small contingent this evening. Sir, would you like to start us off? Name, address, phone number, where you...
Social security number?
If you could, that would be grateful. We would be very grateful.
Dick Martin. I've been a seasonal person up here for about 49 years on Clark Lake.
Okay.
I was on the board originally when we started the board. I'm back on the board again now. And we had a board meeting, we elected new officers last weekend, and some of us are going to try to participate more in these meetings so we find out in all the municipalities, because we're also linking up with other organizations like the Bayshore Group, Whitefish Bay Group, Kangaroo Lake, for the betterment of all the lake and all the people in those organizations.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Pam, we'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Pam Seiler with the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center.
Thank you. And behind there?
Susan Cubar on South Cape Point Drive. And I noticed that you had the sirens on the agenda, so
If we
since I
did, it
brought
was
that up.
purely a mistake.
You mean I can go home now?
No, Pam's got it. Oh, no, you have to take him
The
with
person on your right is?
Oh, him?
you. Oh, Tom Jordan.
All right,
I'm her
thank you. Welcome. If any of you have any public participation or any comments you'd like to make, other than what you've already done, Dick, but anyone else, if Mr. and Mrs. No? All right, in which case we will move on to adopting our agenda. I assume it was properly noticed, Amy?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
Well, that's good. And then we would need a motion to approve.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as noticed.
And I second that.
Motion by Linda, second by Jim to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next thing would be the approval of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting from August 19th.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 19th minutes.
Second. Motion by John, second by Mark to approve the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting from August 19th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is Pam with the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center, who has some information she'd like to share with us.
Don't give me a promotion like that.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everything's Door County
Thank
up
you,
here.
Pam.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And one for the record.
Thank you.
And I will sit here so that the microphone picks me up. It's not out of disrespect. If you prefer that I carry it, I certainly will do that as well. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I too am a Sevastopol town tax-paying resident, and so I'm very interested in the things that are going on in our little community. What I've just handed to you there are letters of support for the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center in our request for funding for 2020. I assume that those then officially get read into the record. Is that correct, Amy?
They
Or
will.
as being, okay.
They will.
Thank you very much. Just for the public's understanding, there is a letter of support from the Bayshore Inn, JR Vacation Rentals, Westwood Shores, Door 44 Winery, and the Andropolis Waterfront Cottages. So my reason for being here again tonight is to explain a little bit about what it is that the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center does and how we are funded, what we are requesting from Sevastopol. So I will start with our staff. We have a 4-person staff, 2 full-time employees, and myself and our marketing and events director, and then 2 part-time employees and our member and guest relations director in accounting, and then 1 seasonal staff. And the dog is there simply because he's so darn cute that we would like to adopt him for our office. We work independent of the Door County Visitor Bureau, but we work in partnership with the Door County Visitor Bureau as well as the other community visitor centers throughout the peninsula. So it's just, kind of a hierarchy. We're like the kids, then I always consider this to be mom and dad, and then of course at the State Department of Tourism level, we have, what I would consider the grandparents who hold the purse strings for all of our inheritances and pass it all down little by little. But that is the way that we work. Our board is made up of 15 members, including Supervisor Nellen, who sits on our board. Thank you very much for your service. And then the other Sevastopol business representative would be Pam Joins from JR Vacation Rentals. So just so you know, the board is comprised of lodging, dining, activity-based organizations, professional services, and then our governmental bodies. The Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center has a vision. It's basically that Sturgeon Bay and all of 54235, who we represent as our organization, will be known as a premier Wisconsin community and tourism destination. We are charged with bringing people to the area once they are here, making sure that they understand everything that there is for them to see and do. Our mission is to make sure that everybody understands that it's a great place to live and work and play and stay. And then we have our tagline, come for the fun, stay for the memories. What we do for our members is we put on events. Our communities, we have 10 events that we do a year that you will see in here, as well as other supporting events. We advocate for our businesses and support them in what it is that they need in doing a better job of what they're doing, very frankly. We educate our businesses members. We offer workshops and professional development trainings. We'll bring in, as an example, an expert in restaurateurs, and he will come in or she would come in and work with the business owners on maybe profit margins on their menus, etc. Or facade improvement or retail window design, things along those lines. We provide those services, and then we market, obviously, through our website, our activity guide, our monthly e-newsletters, videos, etc., all of 54235. Again, as I mentioned, we have 10 events a year that we put on, starting with our Fire and Ice Festival, which is going to be right around the corner again in February, and then that goes all the way through our Christmas by the Bay in November. We also are responsible for our holiday lights, planters, events like that. Carlsville, we help to promote that, Carlsville Day, Rotary Shipyard Tours, Door Lighthouse Tours. We support a lot of the other organizations' events that are going on through the marketing. Again, we are the information center. We are the place that people call. So if the tall ships are coming through, even though it's Nicolay Bank's event, they're calling the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center. Our annual budget runs just under or just over $460,000 with obviously a very diverse revenue stream. We feel very confident about this. We're very pleased with this because we know that if something were to happen, something were to go away, we wouldn't be distraught. But at the same time, as you can see there, 41% of our revenues do come from special events last year. It's a big portion of our budget, so we also know if there's rain, like Chairman Warfel mentioned for this weekend, it makes a difference in our budget, but there's not going to be, right?
I don't want my 56 Chevy to get wet.
Excellent, you're going to be in the car show. We like that. The expense side of it runs, as you can see here, our image marketing, activity guide, and special events marketing, roughly about 39% of our budget total, and then personnel being 36% because we're only as good as the people that we have. And then our visitor center operational expenses are about 25% of our budget. This is the little sheet that I put together that actually shows each of the municipalities up and down the peninsula, the type of funding that they get, the number of business members that they have, what they receive from their municipalities. And this comes from 2018, just so you are aware. I don't know if everyone is familiar with how the room tax is collected, so please, if you are, that's great. But basically the room tax, 66% of that room tax goes back to the Door County Visitor Bureau. They are charged with marketing of Door County outside of the area. 4% stays with the tourism zone, and then the 30% goes back to the municipalities in which they collected it. Out of that 66% that goes to the Door County Visitor Bureau, they actually give back to the communities 11% of their 66, again, in the communities that it was collected in. So we receive what is called Strategic Community Partnership Funds from Sevastopol Township, from the City of Sturgeon Bay, and the Town of Sturgeon Bay. So those monies have to be spent on marketing. They are directed by state law to be marketing dollars only. So in addition to that, most all of the communities, and again, there are some places that we were unable to get information from, basically in that Southern Door area specifically, but most all of the communities give back a portion of their 30% to the visitor center that's in their area for operational expenses, because we all know we can market the heck out of everything, but unless you can still answer the phone and put a roof over your heads, you're really not going to get a whole lot of work done or pay the people who answer those phones. So it ranges in how much each of these communities, and you can see that little starred column there, gives to each of to their visitor centers, but it ranges anywhere from 25%, which is what we get from the City of Sturgeon Bay, and that is based upon the previous full year's room tax collection. So as an example, for 2019, we got 25% of the tax that was collected in 2017. That's done for budgeting purposes. Obviously, you'll know what that full year is, because as you're doing budget now, you don't have any idea what the last quarter of room tax is going to be. And then, again, it ranges all the way up to 50%.
How does, I
Yep.
can't see all of that, but where does Carlsville fit in there? You mentioned you market for Carlsville.
Carlsville as well.
Town-
Correct.
town
But-
of
Big
Harbor.
Harbor. Big Harbor business owner.
And, right. So anything that's not in 54235, however, Carlsville itself, has that little area that goes right up to, I think, about the campground, maybe? Is that where the line is? Right. So then we cover all of that area. Door Peninsula Winery, Door County Distillery, Door County Coffee, as examples, are all members of ours.
Okay, and that's funded back through the Egg Harbor Town.
Through the town of Egg Harbor, that
Okay.
goes to the Carlsville Business Association, and that's how they provide that Carlsville Day. But then we help to promote that. We put that in our activity guide that's on our website with all of our events. We go up there, we do social media marketing and things for them, because again, you're all our members. By the numbers, one thing that we have to be very cognizant of is that the traveler changes. But what we're most excited about is the fact that our stop-by residents and guests are up 20% year-to-date. We've had almost 4,300 people in our door through the end of, that would have been August. Our phone calls are up 3%, and then we added this year what we call Drift Assistant. It's an actual online virtual assistant that's on our website, so that when people have a question, we immediately answer it. People may think that it's a bot of some sort that's answering it, but it's actually myself. So there's the person behind the curtain, and or Rose, or one of the people in our office, because we think that the sooner that we can connect with those visitors and guests, the more likely they are to stay in our area. And we know that ultimately that's what this is. It's all about a game of making sure that we get people to stay here, and then we use them as a launching point, then go and discover all of the door, but stay with us. Our activity guide, we've distributed 80,000 activity guides this year, and I'm also very pleased to say that we have expanded our distribution of that guide. So this year we are down in that Highway 43 corridor, all the way down into the Racine, Kenosha Gateway area, all the way up Lake Geneva, and it goes all the way over to Appleton and Green Bay inclusive. The airport there, one of the things we always say is, where can you drive in 35? Because literally you can be in the Sturgeon Bay city limits in 35 minutes from us in Travel Airport. So we're really trying to take advantage of the fact that we're that close to that. We've also had our online views, and then we have this 2020 plan for out of area. This is going to include things next year, marketing for the Ryder Cup, the Democratic National Convention, as well as the Wisconsin Notre Dame game, because those are three places that bring in a ton of traffic. And we know that not everybody is going to be able to stay in the areas where those events are taking place. but also the fact that people who would have normally stayed there are now going to be displaced because all of those rooms are taken up by blocks of the DNC or whatever. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to really showcase, you know, Door County, and again, being so close to Austin Straubel Airport is really what we're going to focus on. Our website visits were up 25% this year. Our users were up 14%. We know that people are finding us. Again, they're interacting with us. Our Facebook numbers were up 11% this year. Social media is huge, and you know, like it or not, it's where you have to be, and we, I think, do a very good job of staying on top of our social media and constantly responding to things and answering, you know, people's comments and liking and sharing and things along those lines. And then Instagram is the biggie, because right now it's all about what's pretty. As Mr. Jordan here would tell you in his photography, he's provided a lot of beautiful photography for us. It's up 63% this year. So we're really working hard on our marketing, but I think that we're doing some great job. Email marketing numbers are coming here, over 10,000 subscribers. Our open rate is 22.58%. The industry average is 20%. So, you know, all those emails that you get in your inbox that you just delete, we are ahead of the curve of that. And our click-through, which is really impressive, is 30.86%. The industry average is only 2%. So that means when people are actually opening the email, they're reading the content, they're interested in what it is that we have to say. Our most requested pages, number 5, stay. That's where they want to, you know, figure out where they're going to be. Dining is number 4, so we have a place to eat as well as place to stay. And then it goes down the line into experiences, our what's happening calendar, and our events. So what has shifted probably in the last 5 to 10 years is, I mean, stay used to be our number 1 look. It's exactly where, you know, people, what they wanted to do. They were planning ahead. They're not traveling that way anymore. They are very much traveling on the fly. They want to know what's going on, and then once they figure out what's going on, then they'll figure out a place to stay. So again, and this is kudos to Kim Roberts at the tourism zone for, I mean, tracking down all those Airbnbs and such and being able to collect those dollars, because it is definitely a trend in tourism that is to be reckoned with, and I'm sure that Supervisor Nellen has shared that with you on his many county tourism zone reports. Our room tax for Sevastopol, from 2017 to 18, the last full year, you were up 3.3%. Year to date, you're down less than 1%, and that's through the end of July. Sturgeon Bay is exactly at the same point. It's basically flat for this year so far. You can see the difference between 2011 and 2018, going from $231,000 collected to over $332,000 collected. That is an increase of 43.7% since 2011, and I wish that I could have a financial advisor husband that might be able to get me those kinds of returns. But I'd like to think that we're part of the reason why those room tax numbers keep going up, because we're doing our jobs, we're getting people out there to recognize that Sturgeon Bay, 54235, Sevastopol, the Westwood Shores, the Bay Shore Inns of the world, the Glidden Lodges of the world, that they are, you know, they are finding them, we're helping them to get there, and then they're staying and playing. So, what's next? Our request for this financial support. I think that the success of the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center has a direct impact on the occupancy rates, as we talked about. The more people that we can get here to stay here, the better off we all are. And I think that our success, you know, goes right along with that. For every dollar spent on tourism, the return on investment at state level is $7. So it's a really good investment in your community. The Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center is directly responsible to all of 54235. I want to make that, you know, make that aware. It's not just because we're called the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center that it's only Sturgeon Bay, but frankly, the visitor doesn't care if it's Sturgeon Bay proper, or if it's Little Sturgeon, or if it's Valmy, or wherever. It's, as far as they're concerned, they're staying in Sturgeon Bay in their minds, and that's something that, you know, then we direct from there. The growth of our marketing numbers, I think, shows that our efforts are turning into increased visits and stays, because as we grow with, like I said, our social media numbers, whether it be our website numbers, the room tax is increasing as well. So we hope that somewhere along the line we can say we're partly responsible for that. And again, you know, along with Door County getting people here, you know, with us, we appreciate that. We understand that everyone is looking for money. Everybody is coming to you looking for money, knowing that, this is the first year that the town hall has been paid off. I promised I would be back, so here I am. But to that, I guess I would say, yeah, John.
Yeah.
Without, and I'll go ahead here, there's a risk reward. If we're doing our job, I feel like we should be, rewarded for doing it. If we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, then we shouldn't either, which is where, the percentage of room tax that we are given in a contract with the city of Sturgeon Bay as an example. If we're doing our jobs, then great. But if we're not, then that's going to be reflected in the room tax numbers as well. I would always say, without what it is that we're doing at the visitor center, that 30% quickly becomes 0%, realistically. We have to keep doing our job in order to maintain that 30% for the communities in which we serve. Now, we understand that you guys, again, have lots of, constraints and demands upon your budgets. I totally get that. I sat on the Sturgeon Bay School Board for 13 years. I understand, the revenue limits and such. It's not easy, and there's always going to be something to spend money on. But I feel as though this is something that we have to ask for, that I feel this is something that I would like for you all to support in some way. Maybe it's not at a level of where we would like it to be at this point in time, but I feel as though we are worthy of support from the Sevastopol town. So, any questions for me?
Should have gone to the school and made this presentation. They got all the money.
The school, Sevastopol?
25 million, they could just lop off one classroom.
As I recall, exactly. There was another referendum. I can't go to referendum myself.
Sorry.
Otherwise, I would.
Go ahead, anyone have questions that they would like?
I'd just like to, a few years ago, Pam, we reached out to all of the businesses that we were aware of in the town of Sevastopol, big and small, one-man shows to Glidden Lodge and everybody, asking if there was any interest in forming our own Sevastopol Business Owners Association. And the response was no. Is there any way that perhaps the Visitor Bureau could reach out to our businesses and ask, maybe encourage them to form a Business Owners Association, and perhaps the town would be more likely to support an organization as opposed to,
We'd be losing money then.
well,
I was,
well, this would be separate from the joint marketing funds that you receive.
Well, the joint marketing funds that they get are in lieu of our having our own.
Right.
Right, that's why we, right, because
right,
we
and
don't
that
have our
again,
own.
exactly, and
but-
that again is strictly marketing money, and that's the point I would like to make of that. Those joint marketing funds, those SCP dollars are not available to anybody to use. They have to be turned over to a tourism marketing
Right.
entity. So, it's not available to the, Sevastopol Township. It has to go
Right.
directly to one of us. And I guess to that, I would say, it has taken us 25 years to build up the business that we have in the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center, and to come up with this type of number, I feel as though, while you have a Carlsville Business Association already in place that Verna runs yet, I believe, then that's for the event, your Carlsville Day specifically, I think. I'm not sure if there are any other things that they do. I haven't heard
So having
of
our
anything.
own, so having our own Business Owners Association would not benefit the Sturgeon Bay Visitors Bureau?
We work in partnership with all of the visitor centers up and down the peninsula, but I guess I'm not getting your question, simply because I think that for your business members, I think that we can do a lot more for them, again, because of the maturity of our organization over what it is that, a new
That we could do.
organization could.
Okay.
But that's
Can I ask a question? Do you collect, do you think, most of all the money from rental properties, a rental where they get the room tax and everything on it? Or do you think there's a lot of people that are doing it without reporting it?
We could talk a couple hours about that. And if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, Supervisor Nolan sits on the Door County Tourism Zone, and I would, and as do I. But I would say, you sit on the executive committee, so yes, you should speak to that first and foremost. But I believe that Kim Roberts, who does the collection, oversees that process of making sure that properties are permitted. I mean, she should be working for the FBI in my humble estimation.
We calculate that we've got a compliance of well in excess of 99%.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Because we had a question at one of our board meetings the other day, and we came out with a new brochure that we're leaving it all rental properties, talking about Sevastopol and Clark Lake, and what we expect of the renters and people of these BBOs and all this other stuff that's popping up all of a sudden that we're finding out of more places on the lake. And we wondered how many of those people are registered for that, so.
Well, if you think that there's somebody out there, I'm sure that Kim
that's
Roberts
right.
would be very interested in getting them a nice packet, a welcome packet to, yes, lodging in Door County.
I think
Go
for
ahead.
my fellow supervisors, this issue was raised at the last meeting of the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center, and I felt very alone in the room. And the question was put, would the town be in a position to, what's the likelihood the town, on the part of the town, to contribute money that's currently part of the 30% that we receive, that we take into our budget? And my response was perhaps unduly blunt. I said I thought it was very, very limited. I said, I can't speak for the supervisors, I can speak for myself. I would be very much disinclined to make a contribution out of the 30% that we take into income, because it's, quite frankly, when you get beyond the levy and state aids, it's our single largest revenue source. And I think, I mean, as I've mentioned to you, and I said to the group, I think the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center does a terrific job. And when I was going out, when I was running for this job, and I was out knocking on doors, I did speak, not all, but most of the managers of the larger lodging facilities, and they spoke very, very highly of you, and not one person mentioned to me that he thought that their interest would be advanced by the town contributing money that is otherwise taken into income as a 30%. And I see they've supported your request. I think that the comment I made was that we are in a deficit position this year, and we did that knowingly. We understood that. There's nothing wrong with that. And it was in great part because there was a general feeling on the part of the supervisors that we wanted to take extra monies and put it into road construction. I thought, I don't know, we haven't done our capital budget, but I would assume that we are going to have an austerity budget next year. But I would mention that the lodging entities in this community, I'm talking about Sevastopol, are a very vibrant part of the community.
They are.
But you know, 91% of our levy comes from residences, only 4% from commercial activity. And if we were to give at the same level as the city of Sturgeon Bay, which has, has lodging facilities as we do, but also has gift shops and restaurants and coffee shops, and it has a much larger commercial activity that depends on tourism. We would be asked to contribute $25,000 to this effort. That's approximately 25% of the 30% we receive. I just think that is, I just don't, at least personally, I just don't see that in the cards.
Well, I look at it this way. This building is going to be, 11 years old, right?
Yep.
And we are very grateful that the room tax dollars were the enabler for us to have this rather than us rolling around in our mobile home with all the associated things that crawled through that building. But frankly, I've been looking forward to the day that we actually had that money to spend on some of the projects we haven't funded. So I'm kind of in a quandary in that we haven't had our capital plan. I've given a draft to the supervisors of projects that we haven't funded when we sat down 2 years ago and started that initiative. So I need to sit down with them, take a look at what projects we're going to fund. We're going to try and play catch up on the ones that we didn't fund using some of the room tax dollars. And so I frankly don't know that what will be there. I hear what you have to say. I would only say that if by some way, shape, or form, we have a few extra dollars, I'd consider putting some of that towards your effort. But between road constructions and unfunded projects that we have, I don't know what's going to be there. Our budget is coming up in October. You know, you've been through all that stuff.
Oh,
So,
exactly, and I appreciate that, and thank
Yeah.
you, and thank you.
so I mean, that's really where I think we're at. I don't know the answer to your question. If we had a few extra dollars, I don't think anybody, but I'll let them all individually speak, would be opposed to putting a little into it. I have had a couple of people buttonhole me over that topic from different resorts. And so I'm a little bit sympathetic to your cause, but I can't say that we'll be able to do something, at least at this point, because we're going to try and spend it on other things. But I will look at it, and I'll let the rest of the board
And I
speak.
appreciate that, thank you very much, and I certainly understand exactly where you're at, but I would say to the same, I mean, every community is struggling in the exact same way, and yet they find a way to give, and the percentage is still the percentage of the room tax, so it doesn't really reflect upon, I mean,
Right.
obviously, there are other revenue streams, but a percentage is a percentage, so.
Yeah, I hear you. And any other comments from any of the board, you're welcome to do that.
You guys pretty much covered it.
Pardon me?
I think you two pretty much covered my
Yeah.
feelings on it,
So,
so.
Well,
But-
I appreciate your time, thank you very much
that's no problem, thank
for
you.
hearing me
You're
out again,
welcome.
and
You're welcome anytime, and if,
Oh, you
like I
know
said,
I'll be back every
if it
week.
works out, if it works out, we'll see if we can do something.
I appreciate that, thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you much.
And I'll send you all a copy of the presentation,
great.
so you have it.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. So, pending business, the first thing we have here is road work update, so I thought I would just fill you on the latest conversations with respect to the roads that we have given the business, I shouldn't say given the business, but have asked Northeast Asphalt to do. They are moving the asphalt plant to the Matthew Road location at the end of this month. So their timetable is to pave our roads starting in October in no particular order. But he has assured me that they will get done as soon as that plant has been moved. On a separate note, I've also called and talked with Tom Ash, the manager there, with respect to complaints we received from the neighbors about the excess trucks that are going up and down and the noise, et cetera, et cetera. And so I asked Tom to inform the drivers, which right now he's got a bunch of, because they're hauling material to the plant, to see what they can do about decreasing the use of Jake brakes, and we're putting a sign up just outside there asking the drivers to do that as well. So you know what compliance will be, but at least we're going to take an effort at it. So if you see the sign, you'll know what's up and why. I feel sorry for this fellow because he also gets all the motorcycle traffic on the corner coming and going, so it's a little bit of a disadvantage there. Any rate, so hopefully in October this thing will get done, and I'll say again, if you haven't taken a look at the roads that we chip sealed, take a peek at them, because I'm thinking next year we're going to do a lot of chip sealing. If they hold up over the winter, and I haven't heard a complaint unless Amy has.
I have not.
I did talk to the road supervisor, and he said they used less chips than they typically did, or they swept it better, so there doesn't seem to be any residual. So we'll see what happens in the future. Anyway, that's what's up on roads. Emergency sirens in the town. Linda did some work on that, so I'm going to let her talk to that issue. And
I don't know if Ms. Skubar was provided with a copy of this email, or
no, she was
No, I
not.
don't think so.
maybe after the meeting we can give you a copy, or I can email you a copy or have Amy do it. But I did reach out to Dan Kane. He's our director at Door County Emergency Management Department. And I asked him about sirens, just as you had requested. And his response was, I have some updates for you, and he starts off with number one, the cost per siren would be around $22,000 to $25,000. The range on the best of days for each of those sirens would be about 2 miles. So with the town of Sevastopol being approximately 10 by 10 miles, I think it's 91 square miles, he thought we would need at least 4 or 5 to provide adequate coverage from end to end and side to side in Sevastopol. He has a couple of additional cost items here. He reached out to Outagamie County on their 3-year maintenance program for replacing batteries that become damaged or worn down circuit boards that range anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s every 3 years. Electricity costs also play a role, depends on how often you test or use them. The county does have 3 other sirens at present. 2 of them are owned by the city of Sturgeon Bay, and 1 is in the town of Forestville. He suggested that if we wanted to pursue this, we might reach out to the city and/or Forestville to get their thoughts on the sirens. Another option would be weather radios. They run around $30 a piece. We do have one here at the town. It's a weather radio. Our previous chairman, I think, did kind of promote citizens purchasing a radio for their own use. And there again, for a town of 2,500, assuming that each household would have one, that would probably amount to about $40,000 if everybody wanted a radio. So the same as 2 sirens. There's no maintenance with the radio, but listening to it, it is kind of garbly and it's kind of hard to understand. I don't know, maybe Amy's maybe it's working a little bit better now, but it's pretty garbly.
Yes.
Yeah. And his final point was that it's important that the sirens are only meant for outdoor warnings. They are not meant to be heard inside and should not be used as the main warning system for folks inside. Therefore, a decision should be made on whether outdoor or indoor warnings would be a better investment. And if there's anything that he wanted us to do or check into, he welcomes that. So that was the response. Okay. And like I said, I'll email you a copy of this.
Okay. It's interesting that this was, maybe it's the question you asked, but it was basically all about the cost and not about any benefits that would accrue for the safety of the citizens, rather than to start off with, well, this is gonna cost more than you ever wanted to spend, so.
I think my original email referenced the effectiveness versus cost versus coverage and other items that might work instead of a siren. But anyway, that was his response.
And you can't put cell phone alerts, all the different weather, TV stations and everybody have alert systems that you can trigger on your cell phone. And given the fact that probably 1 person on the planet that doesn't have a cell phone in hand, they could certainly utilize that as a tool if they were concerned. I know I did have a weather radio myself at the house for a while, but it didn't provide me a lot, but it sat there for 2 years waiting for something to happen.
Dan, is that an app, or is that something that is automatically installed on all?
There's a little bit of both. I did some investigation. There are apps that you can do that with, and there's also alerts that you can place on your phone when you download Channel 2 weather app, a WBA weather app, and they'll send you alerts and just a variety of different things.
So will the American Red Cross. There's a terrific app you can put on your phone.
Yeah.
And the county instituted the Red Alert system. That's also a phone app. If you call the county office, I'm sure they can tell you all about it.
Okay.
It's free.
The reason this came up was because I was talking about this with some of our neighbors, especially after I had mentioned that, that severe weather had gone through. And the idea of the siren being, again, something that would definitely be an outdoor notice, for people who are probably on the beach, probably not in their cars or in their houses, or not even maybe having your cell phone close by.
Work in the fields.
And that there are dead spots, especially a lot of dead spots along the beach. And that was my biggest concern, is that, if there's a tornado, that the people who are most at risk would not know that it would be coming. You know, if you're along the beach.
They're on the beach and they look at the sky, they should see something coming.
Well, not necessarily. That stuff happens really fast, and I think we often depend too much on our cell phones when they then really find out that they don't work. And, you know, I volunteer over at Whitefish Dune State Park, and that's probably a really good example of how your cell phone service doesn't work there a lot. So I just wanted to bring this up. I thought it was a safety issue, based on, you know, the tight budget of the town. I would imagine that none of this would ever happen.
Well,
But
wait a minute, but if that's the case, and it's not, what if it was only where there were dead zones for the phone?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't hear you.
What if there's only where there were dead zones for phones?
Along the water, basically, what it would be, both sides of the town.
You know, the problem with dead zones is it depends on your carrier. I mean, I switched from Verizon to Cellcom. I get worse service now than I did with Verizon, so I'm gonna switch back to them. But some people swear by US Cellular, so you get different areas. I think the issue really, although I understand the benefit, I think the issue comes down to dollars, as it does with so many other things. We could build, and there are people in town that would love us to have our own fire department, and they would make that a higher priority than having an emergency, evacuation siren. You juggle the cost benefits and try and figure out where you go, and Pam's sitting here looking at me going, if you put one tower up versus, and I'm just kidding. But you get my drift, and it's not that there isn't a good payoff on it, it's just, you gotta juggle through all that stuff. And there are some alternatives that may not be as robust as a siren, but I think would, give people perhaps a little better comfort level. And sometimes, frankly, people have to take it upon themselves to take the next step for their own protection.
So you can talk about that tomorrow night, in that communications and electronics and things like that. You have a meeting tomorrow night, or
Tomorrow afternoon, that's
Communications Committee.
your communications
Would that be
committee.
in that thing too?
No, that's not on your agenda.
Okay.
No.
I just wondered if it was related to it, in
No,
the
it's-
aspect of like internet and stuff like that, but everybody's still complaining about.
Well, that's
We had a
another.
survey, and I don't know how the survey came.
Yeah, that's another topic. No, the meeting for tomorrow is to work on our budget for next year, and for trying to figure out what we do with audio visual for the town and for the people that don't get the TV station. So, we can't win in this town. So, anyway, I hope that, I know it's not the answer you'd like, but I hope you at least.
Well, as a citizen, I thought it was my job to bring it up.
That's fine,
There
and
you
we
go.
appreciate the fact that you showed interest and came twice to our meeting.
Yes.
So you look forward to seeing you again. And you can bring Tom too. All right.
You know what we might, I'm hesitant to say this because if you make a suggestion like this, it falls on the shoulders of our clerk treasurer. But we're just now getting some analytics regarding people's use of the revamped website. And I noticed that in the month of August, we had over 1,600 unique visits. So the website is being viewed. People are going in, and I really had no idea how, the extent to which people would use it. You raise an interesting thing. For instance, I didn't know that the county has an app that might be useful. We could indicate or put together something for people to make them aware of the various apps that are available, and then mention it in a banner headline. It's a way of getting the information out to a large universe of people, most of whom I assume live in the town.
And we can do that on our station too, so that's an easy
Or utilize your digital outside. You know, the digital, everybody drives by and we
Right.
actually all read it.
So, good. All right. Next item on the agenda is the infamous and fun-loving Muscat property. Boy. Pardon me?
Where's that?
Next to CNW.
Across
to
from the mill, next to
C&W.
C&W.
Oh, okay.
Across from the mill.
So,
I was thinking of another beautiful property over on Loretz Road and Town Line Road. It says Sevastopol, beautiful Sevastopol, and here's the big trailer trail.
Yep.
that sign's going to be changed.
What sign is it?
Yeah, it's going to say, "Welcome to Clark Lake." Okay, let's move on here. The Muscat property, as you're well aware, I have been working on that, and my predecessor as well, as to try and get those buildings eventually down. And so, with Linda's help with the property committee and a variety of different things, we've made contact with the state, and the state has gone out and verified that there is fuel in the tank, and they have put it on a priority list and referred it to the Department of Justice in the state of Wisconsin for removal. So, which is a good thing. We make a little bit of progress there. The second thing is that we started to put some money aside as a town to remove those buildings, and I worked with our town attorney with a set of objectives to figure out what we could do and not do. And I know that there was hesitancy on the part of everyone here with respect to that fuel tank and concern about future liability based on what's happened in the past in the city in particular. So I continued to pursue this with the DNR and finally reached two people that were responsible for making the decision with respect to this property and what we could or couldn't do. And I came up with, these people came up with what's called a liability waiver. And it's only with the state of Wisconsin for a small, modest fee of $700. They will send us a liability waiver letter telling us that we are free to remove those buildings as long as we do not disturb the fuel tank or the fuel pump. And basically, the other key to this is that we do not take title to the property, which is the key component by not taking title to the property. I have given them an application requesting the liability waiver as a template for a discussion. So I said, okay, take a look at this and tell me if it's what you need to give me a liability letter. They called me back. I had 3 people from the DNR on the phone. They said, yes, it is. We would give you a liability letter if you want it, but quite frankly, you don't need it. Because we don't own title to it, we don't have to go and do that. He said, it's up to you if the board feels that we need to have that for peace of mind. We pay them $700. They'll send me a formal letter saying, if you do this and you leave that alone, you have no responsibilities for that property from any kind of restoration. So they're willing to talk to our attorney as an alternative if we want. If not, we send them a check for $700, I believe, and they'll send us a letter saying, okay, you go have at it. Which is good, because this is the one thing that scared the county off a few years ago. And Linda and I and Biz have been to the county and talked to Grant Thomas and the administrative committee to try and get some funding from them. Maybe Pam would be interested. To try and get these buildings done. At any rate, so the primary thing here is you're going to have to tell us, or tell me tonight, do we want the letter or don't we? And you know what the investment is. The process, and this is a recap from the letter from Randy, if you hadn't refreshed it, we go out and condemn the property. The building inspector does that. That's the first step. We give the owner 30 days to respond. After that, we request a court order to remove the buildings. We can selectively remove the buildings, and my focus would be to remove the homes. I'm not worried so much about the barns, because you could build a case that they're at least attractive in some way, shape, or form. So we can be selective. We can take a building a year out. We don't have the money anyhow, but we can be selective, and we can do a little each year if we choose. So we don't have to get it all done in one lump sum. Charges for the demolition would be put on the owner's tax bill. And the process would take somewhere between 6 to 18 months, depending on the response time from the owner, her response, I should say. So if she decides to fight it, it goes to court, it's gonna take a little longer. If she throws in the towel and says, have at it, it could go quicker. The cost from the attorney for an uncontested court order would be about $700. If it's contested, it could go as high as $10,000. And I believe we have, I just sent it out, I want to say 25,000 in that fund,
Yes.
Amy? So,
But the last time you talked, you didn't actually know who the owner exactly was.
we still do not know who the owner is, and the Department of Justice wants that as their piece for the fuel. And Randy is working on that. He's got all the documentation, and he will identify that. But for all intents and purposes, I believe in the end, it's going to end up being who we believe it to be and who's been paying the tax bill. And she is behind on her taxes. So, although I think it's 1 year, right? Maybe two now.
Just 1 year.
1 year. So we're making some progress, and it's, potentially you could see something come down there at some particular
Who foots
point.
the bill for the tanks, for the removal of the tanks?
That would go to her. That would be their,
That would
yeah.
go as
We would do nothing with those tanks.
I know, but you said it's going to the.
The tax for demolition
That's
would
gonna
go
go
to
to that
her,
as
and I'm
well.
assuming the courts would force her to remove the tanks. However the Department of Justice works, I don't know. So maybe you've got any light on that, feel free.
Well, I think once you get the ponderous machinery of the Department of Justice moving, putting it in forward gear, I think it'll move. It'll move slowly, but I do think it'll move inexorably towards
Yeah.
resolution. I applaud you. I mean, this issue has been a millstone around everyone's neck for the longest time, and I think for the first time, we've got at least a path forward.
I mean, I think we could, so anyway, I mean, I'm reasonably excited, although I could be long gone before something happens. But the question for the board is, do you want the letter of liability? And if you do, then we send a check and we'll get the letter of liability, and then we'll turn the building inspector and Randy loose. I mean, that's really,
So if we don't have that letter, we can't have them, we
we do
have to
not.
have that to take the next step.
we do not need the letter according to these people.
What did Randy say about that?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Well, I haven't talked to Randy, but they are willing to have a phone conversation with Randy. So that could be an alternative. I could say, okay, schedule a call with Randy, and if he's comfortable, great, and if he's not, we proceed with the funds and we get the letter.
I agree with that.
So,
He's the one that,
yeah, I mean, I'm
He's the
okay.
lawyer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, so. If that's what you want to do, that's what that's
I
the
vote for
direction.
that.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame on this letter of, this liability waiver? I mean, if it's issued now, is it only good for a year, or is it perpetual, or?
I don't-
I'd want to check that first.
I don't believe there is a timeline. I can verify that. It would seem strange because everything I've told you, I spent a lot more detail. They understand that this is a multi-year project, so I'm assuming they would have said to me, this waiver's only good for, because I told them we didn't have the funds and what we were doing, and I sent them aerial photos. I got a guy with a drone to send some pictures, and we covered a lot. But I'll verify that.
Just as belt and suspenders, I pay the $700. And the reason is that you will, in the letter, they will presumably refer to the documentation you gave them and to the telephone conversation. So there is it's not lost in the mists of time. So that because your biggest fear is that there's a loss of institutional memory, and 3 years someone turns around, a new bureau chief or what have you. And I think I'd like to have that letter.
The guy could get promoted or demoted, I do agree with that. I mean, I thought about that myself. I had 3 of them, and I thought the chances of all 3 disappearing in a couple of years would be slim, but, that could happen, and then they have no recollection of our conversation. So, I'll tell you what, I'll run it by Randy, and depending on the direction that Randy wants to go, we'll either
we
do
need
the
to make a
letter
motion?
or, pardon me?
Do you want to make a motion?
You're welcome to do so if you like.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna talk to Randy? Do we need to make a motion or just make contingent on that?
Well, let's do it this way. I'll, based on the, I wanted to make a motion that's based on the feedback from Randy, we may make the payment based on his recommendation, because it's not budgeted per se. We'd use it general funds.
I'm comfortable.
Are we jumping the gun before we determine ownership and/or heirship? I mean, what if they decide to, so if Randy proceeds with an ancillary case here in Door County to determine heirship, what if the heirs dissent or revoke or disinherit? They don't want the property.
Well, that'd be
Then
good.
what?
That'd be good.
Well, then, would it revert to the county after so many years, or?
I don't know the answer to that, but they did mention that, but I don't recall the answer.
Well, this might,
This
regardless of what we, it's gonna speed the process up, no matter what we do.
Right.
If we don't do anything, it's just gonna keep it the way it has been.
Do
So
you
this
know-
might make something, make them, you know,
Yeah, but if they're already behind a year on their taxes, they might just wait another couple of years.
well, they've been paying their taxes right along. I mean,
3 years plus
On-
one.
They
So,
have been,
but he's got to do, he has to find that out for the Department of Justice. So that's going to come, you know, that's got to happen before all of this would be my guess.
Has
He's
anybody,
got all the documentation.
has anybody contacted the heirs to say that, you know, we're pursuing cleanup of the property and we really appreciate your cooperation? We haven't reached out to them for at least, I think, 2 years.
I talked to her last time, and I haven't talked to her since. And I don't have a problem calling her again. I
Or have
don't
Randy
think,
reach out, our attorney reach out to her.
you know, she, just from my last conversation, you know, she promises a lot but delivers nothing. So
It appears to me that
I can go either way.
we're going down a couple of paths in tandem. One is that the town in particular is offended, and I think properly so, by the decrepit condition of the buildings. And the town has made approaches over the years, and as you say, you know, she's responded, but nothing substantive has ever occurred. I think that before we reach out, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I think that let's let our lawyer give us an opinion as to who owns the property. And then I think we direct all of our attention on that person and say that we have been informed that you are the rightful owner of the property, and we are proceeding along these lines. And I think we could allude to the fact that we have been in discussions with the State Department of Natural Resources, and they have concluded that whatever they've concluded, and she will see that there is a problem written all over that, because we will probably in the letter say, and the state of Wisconsin has determined that there's liquid in the tanks, and so I think we ought to proceed along those two lines. I think we ought to ask our attorney to, I know he's in the process of telling us who owns the property. I think that if he's satisfied in the state, and he has a conversation with the state, and he takes at face value, the state says that we can proceed doing our bit, and they're willing to give us this liability letter, I think we ought to proceed. I think that gives us perhaps some bargaining power when we actually do sit down and reach out to her. Because I think at some point in time, we'll want to do that.
And we're not talking about tearing the buildings down next month anyhow, because even if she said no, they're still 6 months out according to Randy. So, but
Well-
I'm cool with that. So I mean, I can go back and just say, hey, you know, let's solve the deed piece first, and then we'll take the next steps.
Dan, we don't give this amount of leniency to other properties that have tar in their front yard for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? You go to the nuisance committee or whatever the committee is called, and we're sending letters out to people all the time telling them we don't give those properties this kind of leniency. This has been going on for how many years? You know what I mean? Like this, they've had enough time to do something on their property. I think we should go ahead with whatever we can to clean it up. That's my personal opinion on it.
Well, our property management committee, we pretty much rely on our Door County zoning ordinance and violations, and that's what we base our, when we contact a property owner, we say, okay, in violation of, or we have the zoning administrator contact them and pay a visit or write correspondence. But the county seems to have washed their hands of this project. I think it's on the record that they don't find any violations because the property's uninhabited. If it was inhabited, it would be something different. But-
Well, they did, in that they fined her twice. The county did, and she
Right,
paid the
that's
first,
true.
she
Yeah,
did pay the
paid
first fine,
one.
she
I don't know
hasn't
if
paid the
she's paid the
second.
second one or not, but,
But I think the county's take, and I mean, we could go into this discussion about what they did in Carlsville with the 40 grand, but I think the county has, more than anything, dodged this because of this fuel tank thing. And I think by isolating that, I don't know if we'd be lucky in getting them re-engaged or not. I mean, the issue, aside from the fact that it's just plain eyesore, this is right after the kiosk that welcomes everybody to the county door, and I mean, you've got this nice eyesore there, which is very much similar to the nice trailer that's parked right behind the Welcome to Sevastopol sign. So I mean,
This has been going on for a long time, and I know the county has let it go by.
yeah,
So I followed it through years. How many years has that been sitting like that?
long time.
10 years?
I used to have dark brown hair.
The other thing also is, how much does it cost for our lawyer to send them a letter? I mean,
Yeah,
spend that out there, and then yes, okay, now we spend the other extra 700. You know what I mean? Another expense, if we have him contact them.
well, let me do this, rather than all the what-ifs. I'll circle back with Randy, because he is not aware of all of this stuff that's happened until I talked with you. So I'll circle back with Randy, get what he believes the best course of action, and we'll just bring it back next month for some activity. The guys at the DNR are trying, you know, that's not a problem. They've got everything I need, or that they need from me. So, and maybe in that time frame, Randy will have ascertained the ownership piece, and, you know, that may provoke some activity on its own.
So do we move the table this till next month?
I'll just carry it over to next month. So,
just looking at the circuit court access, that second, yes, the first citation was paid in full. The second citation is still outstanding and unsatisfied with interest accruing. So this is unpaid. The real estate taxes are unpaid. Maybe they're gonna just abandon the property too, who knows?
Trouble
The
is-
taxes are so nominal though, it's,
she owns that parcel is small, I don't remember what the parcel with the property, or with the buildings on it, and then she owns the property across the,
Shows two adjacent properties.
right, I think there's 40 acres over there, or something like that, so, which is farmland, but we'll find out.
Wonder where they're sending the rent check to.
They send it to Nikki.
So that's kind of a paper trail right there.
and I don't know if it's even being rented or farmed anymore. I think it's just lying.
He had, a fellow that had
Fellow.
it was gonna go organic,
Right.
and so they had to leave it sit
3
for,
years.
was it 3?
Yeah.
So that's probably why nothing's happened, so, all right. The continuing saga.
Stay
I
tuned,
think you,
folks.
by the way, I think you all did get a copy of Randy's letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not. All right, so then, reallocation of room tax dollars. Ooh. We talked about this last month.
Should we wait till Pam leaves?
Pam's not gonna hear anything different than she already did, so. That's fine. I'm gonna recommend that we take our entire room tax and put it in the, okay?
No.
Did I hear, sorry, no, sorry, the motion failed. All right, go ahead.
Could we wait and see how our budget work session pans out on October 14th? See where we sit then?
Can I make a suggestion? I know everybody's gonna be asking you for money,
Oh, yeah.
and it's hard to say no. Just an idea. Why don't you take then the roads come first, or what is that? Why don't you take a portion of it and say, everybody that's made a legitimate request over the past 5 years, we're gonna have a lottery.
That's what we have now.
That way, you've already pre-qualified. If you didn't make that request, it's too late. You qualify. And it would be a way to not have everybody pleading with you for the money.
It's a thought.
Put it into our capital plan.
Pardon me?
Put it in with our capital plan.
Yeah.
Allocate 5% or something.
Can I just add to that, the fact that I think that anyone who should be in this lottery, quote unquote, should be somebody who can show that they were responsible for bringing
Oh,
in that
yes,
room tax.
yes.
And not that it's just some
No.
organization or, not that they're not all worthy, but again, if it's room tax.
There would be
then-
criteria to be part of that.
So we would put the tractor, the ATV, the John Deere tractor, the temporary employee, and the
State
boardwalk all in the hat from the Friends of
No,
Whitefish.
no,
I'm just kidding, Tom.
I don't- You, kid? Come on.
There was an interesting succession of requests that we had one year, so I'm trying to keep up with them. That's fine if you want to roll that over. And I will probably end up doing a capital piece beforehand, because we need to figure out where that's going. So we can do that at a later date. So,
Question about, I know that you've talked a lot about the roads, and then a lot of this will go for roads. Have you, planned this out like 5 years ahead? Is it gonna take 5 years to get the roads with this money, or is it only 2 years, or, what's a longer term goal for the money from the property tax, the room tax?
yes, maybe, and I'm not sure. No, the roads are an ongoing thing, and we're not gonna get caught up in 2, 3, or 5 years, because right now with 87 miles of roads, and we're paving 1 to 2 a year, we're on a very lengthy cycle. So what we're gonna try and do is pick off the ones that are in the worst shape. So the roads are gonna continue to be a drain, for lack of a better word. As far as our other capital projects, they're on a 5-year plan where we're gonna try and fund them out, building the reserves, so that when we need a new lawnmower for the park, which is 15 grand, we'll have the money when we try and do something for AV here, so that you have a better presentation than that screen. So we're funding that on a 5-year schedule. But roads are gonna be a big piece of our budget for a long time, because we just can't catch up. We've been so far behind for so long, so.
And that's not saying that we're gonna put a big, huge chunk every year of that
Right.
for the roads either.
Right.
It's, as the chairman has explained to me, roads 5 years ago cost $40,000 a mile. Now they cost nearly $90,000.
Yeah.
And when you look at the depreciation we're incurring, that's rolling off our books every year, this is historical depreciation, some of which goes back 20 years. So the spend goes back 20 years. That depreciation is what we're currently spending on roads is barely equaling our depreciated expenses that we're taking. So no matter how you look at it, it's clear that if we wanted to, the goal is, I think, a 20-year cycle for maintaining the roads, and we are way behind that cycle. So it's a perennial problem, it's going to be with us for a long, long time.
Has all of this outcry at the state level, as far as road maintenance, also going to trickle down any money, do you ever think, to the town?
There are some things that are in the works, we just don't know if we'll qualify for them. So there is a one-time opportunity there, and that's on our agenda here, so. Okay, I'll hold over the reallocation, and we'll probably discuss having a meeting ahead of time on the capital plan. Fire protection update, this is still alive. It's coming back alive. I talked to the fire chief, and they want to have a meeting with us. So it'll focus a little bit on trying to address the school's concerns, our concerns,
Good night.
and as part of that, some long-term contract, whatever that means. So they have a different perspective on it, so they've asked to meet. I said, great, I want to meet with the mayor and fire chief and the administrator, and so I've asked Jim to go along and see what's up, and we'll report back. So, okay, off to new business, short-term rentals. And I put on here discussion only because I didn't want to create a groundswell of activity on something we haven't really discussed. So I know that Jim and Linda have talked about this. I've talked with them a little bit about some of the problems with short-term rentals. I have empathy for some of the people in that I have personally experienced it, and I know others that have experienced issues with short-term rentals. So I think it's probably a good topic for discussion, and I don't know what we will or won't do, and I will let either of you, whoever wants to lead or compliment the other, feel free, you have the floor. So,
Well, I'll just kind of recap what our property management committee has looked at. We did discuss a short-term rental licensing ordinance, strictly in draft form. I think having a level playing field is just at the top of the list there when it comes to why we would want to do something like this, so that Airbnbs, vacation rentals by owners, whatever, are on the same field as our licensed motels, hotels, cottages, resorts, or whatever. So we're looking at the sections in that ordinance. We had a lively discussion at our property management committee meeting last month. And just looking at some of the letters that were included in the packet there, kind of explains the situation.
right.
Probably the same throughout Door County here, not just in Sevastopol. So that's where it stands right now. Perhaps some of the suggestions in our ordinance might be a little too restrictive, but strictly discussion at this time.
I think that I agree with what Supervisor Wade had to say. I think this is an issue that does need to be addressed. There are all sorts of facets to it. It's a very incendiary topic, I understand that. And I've talked to the city of Sturgeon Bay because they're wrestling with the same issue. And please understand that I am reacting to the voices of constituents who have raised this issue. And that, and the problem is that many of the residents of this very, very lovely town we live in are finding that they're living, in fact, next to what are really investor-owned mini hotels, sleeping 8, 10, 16, and in some cases over 20 people. These are commercial enterprises that are in the middle of residential areas. And you know, yes, there's a nuisance regarding fireworks and all hours of the evening and noise and traffic congestion, but there are more severe, I think, more serious consequences, and that is our neighborhoods are going through what I believe are, they're going through a very real, although very slow and not necessarily noticeable transition. As homes are, as I say, our homes are being bought for the purpose of putting them in the short-term rental pool. Houses that were formerly occupied by full-time residents are now being purchased by investors whose guests have no interest in becoming integrated into the community. And the indifference, I think, will have a detrimental effect on the fabric of this community. The irony is that homes are being advertised either explicitly in the written materials or it's being communicated to potential buyers by the realtors that they can make it work by putting them into the short-term rental pool. So the irony is we're in a situation where people are paying a premium on houses because of their revenue-generating potential. Not because that's a place where they want to live, it's a place they want to buy and then lease out to others on a short-term basis. On the other side, which is where the irony is that people who might be able to afford those houses are finding that they can't afford them because they aren't willing to pay the premium because they want to buy the house to live in. What hasn't been really taken into account is the effect of these really many hotels, the effect they're having on their adjacent neighbors, and I think the very real diminution in the value. If you don't happen to be lucky enough, to own a rental facility, you happen to be next to one, you suffer all of the problems that come with that. The chairman has pointed out the fact that, this is a ticklish issue. And I think we ought to go at it in a very disciplined fashion. I think that we ought to ask one of the committees to look at this, gather information. I think we ought to hear from people and then report back to the board of supervisors as to what they think. And I suspect the committee will have an opinion. It may or may not carry water with the supervisors, but at least it'll be a point of starting the discussion among the board.
Point of information, Green Bay went through that same thing around County State, through the tax thing with those people buying those houses for a weekend deal. They passed ordinances and laws to prohibit and regulate certain things in the neighborhood. Can't you go and find out what they did there?
We're pretty familiar with what they've done.
Are you? Okay.
I think that the real touchstone is the state statutes allow municipalities to outright prohibit short-term rentals of 6 days or fewer. I think that is going to be the issue that's going to capture everyone's attention. I think that, you've just heard me give my 2 cents worth on it.
Well, that was our concern at Clark Lake. We're starting to see something.
And I think that is, the state statutes don't prevent us from prohibiting short-term rentals, period, but only short-term rentals of fewer than 7 days. But I think that we need to have an open and candid discussion, and I think all comers will have an opportunity of expressing their views. And hopefully will come out of that committee as a proposal that the board can consider.
And I think the reason it started with the Property Management Committee is because we got the complaints.
Yes, that's
And
right.
perhaps we need to have a joint committee meeting between the Property Management and the Plan Commission. Start there. I'm just looking at the draft ordinance again, and one of the purposes of the ordinance is, and I quote, "to protect the character and stability of our neighborhoods." The full-time residents, I think, are being a little shortchanged by perhaps the income factor of Airbnbs. And also, an ordinance would require the owner of that property to have the name and number of a property manager or agent, so that if there was a complaint made to one of our supervisors, or the neighbor wanted to point out something, there is contact information, rather than just calling the sheriff's department. I would think they'd rather hear from their agent or whatever, rather than the sheriff's department.
Do we have a number of what percentage, like the Airbnb and short-term rentals that goes towards our room tax?
We have a pretty good idea. I've done some back of the
Is it gonna
envelope.
hurt if let's say we get rid of it altogether, is it gonna hurt us
I
profoundly, or is it gonna be?
don't think it'll hurt us profoundly. I'd be silly to say it's not going to have any effect whatsoever, but I think that it can be dealt with. But I think it's important to get the numbers out on the table. What I've done, Mark, is simply back the envelope calculations. I think they're rough, they're directionally right, but I'd like to refine them a little bit. But I think that's one of the things we'd want to get on the table, understand what the impact is.
And you cannot say no. You cannot say, no, you cannot rent your property.
Right.
But municipalities can at least put into effect, okay, you must have a license, you must have a building inspection, you must have a fire inspection. Is your well and sanitary system equipped to handle 18, 20 guests or whatever? So that's as far as we can go.
We have what, 80, roughly, right, 80
About
properties?
75
to 80 permitted properties?
Yeah, and there's, and it gets and I think that's probably a more disciplined fashion, we can go through and identify which are the larger properties, because obviously whatever we do is not intended to affect any of the larger lodging properties or the resorts. It's really aimed at those relatively few properties that are
Do they,
were a one-time
is there
owner.
a way to define that within?
Or like the residential versus a commercial
I think we-
setting?
So we don't
Sure.
trip over, okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
The other-
Motels, hotels, resorts would be
It's only
exempt.
commercial.
Then the other concern that I had, and I expressed to Linda, and more than anything to me, is we're gonna get compliance from some percent. But what do we do with those that don't? So we have no enforcement. So then that falls back on Randy to enforce it for us, right? I mean, that's the only vehicle. Do we
Well,
have?
I thought of perhaps an intergovernmental agreement with another entity or two where, okay, if you don't comply with the town of Sevastopol requirements, you don't get this, or vice versa. If we can tie together a couple entities to
So
work
by-
with us. Something like if you don't pay your taxes, you're not going to get an alcohol beverage license.
Yeah,
right.
You know, that sort of
The
thing,
license thing, yeah.
so.
Okay.
And looking at some of the information that was included with the packet, and a couple of those were from local Airbnbs, I noticed none of them stated how long they're renting. You know, if we would think about doing the minimum of 6 nights, the two that were included in the packet did not indicate, neither establishment indicated what the minimum stay was.
That's right.
Do we know?
I'm not for sure. You'd have to probably go online and take a look at their calendars and figure out from their calendars what the average length was.
Do we know, could we figure out how many are taxpayers?
Yes,
Oh,
I
sure.
think we have a pretty good idea.
What would you guess?
Well, I figure that,
I mean, excuse me, I didn't mean taxpayers, they are taxpayers. I mean
Residents.
Residents, how many, like, for example, our neighbors rent, but they don't rent for anything less than 7 nights, so.
that's right. Well, in that case, they would, by state law, they would be excluded because we can't, we couldn't even if we wanted to, prohibit people from renting
Yeah.
for more than 6 days. I think that my sense is, from looking at it, it's a very small minority of that 75. The clear majority, in fact, I think most of those properties are owned by people who are either living out of state or they're not residents of the community.
Okay.
I'd want to take a much closer look at it
Right,
to get
right.
an idea. I mean, I ran into someone the other day who sold their property, and I said, he was going on and on and on about it, thinks it's going into the short-term rental pool. He didn't even use a local realtor. He sold it to a fellow in Chicago. He didn't even go local. I thought that was extraordinary.
I see a lot of that around Clark Lake. A lot of it just goes within family, relatives. If someone finds out, like right now, Heather Smith is on our board, And she said there is not one house for sale except for $1 million place on Cape Point Drive. She said the lowest year we've ever had of no sales on that lake, not a place for sale. But she said that a lot of that does happen where it goes sales people to people. And I know I did that personally on 2 places I bought there.
And our efforts are totally separate from the room tax collection
Absolutely.
effort. This is just our opportunity to, I don't know, do some regulation to help support our neighbors, I guess.
Yeah. Because right now, there's one on Bark Road down there.
Pardon me?
There's one on Bark Road, and I think when I mowed lawn, there was 7 cars. They couldn't even fit in the little parking
Oh, there's
stall.
more than one on Bark. Oh, yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if every single person brought their own vehicle, there's at least 7 of them in there.
Yeah, adequate parking is one of the issues that we would address. That
That's
you
all right.
must provide adequate
I just
on-street
mow right
parking.
around them. That's their problem. They're parked across the road.
I think when this comes up, it's gonna bring up a lot of people here, for a lot of letters, because you have a lot of people that are the part-time residents, that they do rent their properties on weekends they're not here. You know, weeks they're not here and stuff, so it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a pretty big issue.
I suspect it will, and I think, I'm looking forward to the opportunity of having a discussion about it, and people should come and make their feelings known. My sense is that the money is so good from renting out these properties that whatever the initial intentions were to use the property, it's been overcome by the financial reward is too great. The ability to rent a place for.
Jim, you can say it, it's greed, it's fine, you can say
Well, but it's, I think, you go into it with one intention, you realize that the economics are so good that you just want to, you maintain it in its rental status.
Oh, and the other side of the coin too, though, is you got all these people living out of state, and we're gonna enact an ordinance that they may or may not even be aware of, which is gonna be reactionary, so, I don't know how to get at that one. It's not that I want to invite 78 people who are renters into a meeting. It's not unless.
There's been a lot of discussion on that, or meeting.
Yeah, I mean.
Like myself, seasonal, they say taxation without representation, boy, we want to fight this. So some people are taking it to Madison to say, we live in Illinois or we live in Wisconsin, we want to vote for how money gets spent up here. So that's another big question that's all of a sudden popped up the last year, just to let you know.
But I guess I'm not adverse to turning it back on, John's got the planning committee and you have the property management, and if you try and pull the two together and work through a process, that's fine, because I think the key is going to be the process. How are we going to make sure that the people that we need input from are going to give it to us and not be skewed completely by the opposite? I mean, I don't have any issue with this in concept, because I had people next door to me rent, and they had no clue that, they rented to grandma and grandpa, and 14 grandchildren and kids and, everybody else showed up, and he didn't want it on his septic system. So, they don't always know what they're renting to either. But if you want to pick that up and then figure out a process, whether we inform these people, try and get a group of them in to work with, I don't know.
Well, we have a couple other municipalities in the state that that are in the process of doing the same thing. And we can check with them. We're almost to January 1st, so instituting something by January 1st is probably not going to happen.
We can do it with tax day.
And basically, we're just asking everybody to be a good neighbor.
Well,
And as far as safety and.
I think that, I am pretty convinced in today's world that as a result of the discussion we're having this evening, it will get out to the broadest universe you can possibly imagine who have an economic stake in the results and how this is resolved. I don't think we have to worry about whether or not they'll figure it out. I think they'll see exactly what the issue is and how possible ways of resolving it, which is including an outright prohibition against short-term rentals of 6 or fewer days. And I think that will bring people out, and I think that, there's nothing wrong with that. I think they ought to have every right to appear and speak their mind, and we have an obligation to listen and listen responsibly.
All right, so I will leave it in your hands to kind of figure out where you want to go. Feedback, we'll just put it on the agenda next month, and you can have a few minutes to figure out how the process works.
Well, and with the budget and everything, trying to hammer that out, I'm not sure this is going to happen real soon.
That's fine. It's not just keep me in the loop, and we'll put it on as needed. And keep your cards and letters coming to Amy,
She likes that.
who promptly sends them on to everybody.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Okay.
I don't know if everyone in the town understands that every letter that's received from anybody is forwarded to all of the supervisors. We read everything.
Does it? Good.
I've started to take, and I'm on day 3 of the Evelyn Wood speed reading class, so I'm pretty much halfway there.
It's the best way to go to sleep at night, start reading emails.
Road selection for LRIP, a combination here of things. First off, in front of you, I'll jump around a little bit. I had Amy put out this local road aid document.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. This is, we don't know all the level of detail because Amy's going to go to an informational meeting.
In Madison.
And
No, not that time.
No, not
That's
that one.
election.
She
the
was coming
state,
down to visit me.
the state, after a lot of pestering by Wisconsin Towns Association, had bumped up our road mileage allocation the last year and this year. But they also set aside $70 million, I believe, on a one-time grant process that's 90-10 based. So if it's a $100,000 project that's approved by the state, they'll pay $90,000 and we pay 10. We have 6 years to, once the project's been approved, to spend the money. So it's to our advantage to submit some projects for this, and there's an opportunity to do 3 projects, or 3 applications, I should say. And we may or may not make the cut based on merit, but there's potential there. So we should fill out an application, and it's our intention to get something in. And the deadline's in December, but from talking to people and from what I've heard, the sooner the better that we can turn these in, the better chance we might have of getting one of them funded. And we have included the roads, the rating sheets that we used for 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you want to think about what roads to put in there, as well as what roads to do specifically for the county's local road improvement, LRIP, that would be great. I had 2 that came to mind in no particular level. One was Plur Road, which is one of the last roads that we have in the town that somebody lives on that's gravel. So, and with the advent of Dunes Lake being drained, and who knows what that's going to mean, but it might not be a bad idea to submit that. And we could build a case that economically there could be other homes, or there will be homes there, and support of Dunes Lake. And obviously
The
that's
guy that lives on there likes that gravel, though.
I know, and he may get to keep it.
Does he really? Okay, thank you. I think that's a good idea.
The chances of him getting it paved without this
Yeah.
are,
He's got a nice Camaro that.
Pam's getting her
doesn't
money
like
first, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the multimodal funds, or are we
Yes.
talking about LRP? So we're still on multimodal.
Yeah.
I would like to contact Bay Lakes Regional Planning Commission and see if they would help us on these applications and that.
Well, I don't see why not, and Amy's going
I
to the
mean, the
meeting,
worst
so.
he's gonna say is no. but,
Supposedly, the application's supposed to be streamlined. God only knows what that
It's
means.
not supposed to be as hard as the LRIP one. You
Oh,
don't
really?
have
Yeah.
as much
Okay.
substantiating evidence that you need that. It's what I've heard.
when
from
are
the-
you going?
It's a webinar, on the
sorry.
30th of September.
Is it open to everybody?
It is, but you do have to register.
Okay, I'm wondering if Mr. Kaloji will be talking about that next week. Because he said he would be discussing this.
Well, that would be great if he can enlighten anybody, the more the better. I know that I talked to Baldwin Engineering, and they would be open to helping us if we need assistance on any roads that we choose. And the principal reason I contacted him is the other road that I thought potentially is Bark Road, because we have a flooding problem there that is in a section of Bark Road, and we have 2 drains that are in there. So I wanted to know what the expense might be for, because it needs an engineer. I've talked to Thad Ash about it, and they won't touch it. It needs somebody to come out and understand, because of the right-of-way being where it is and everything, if there's a chance they can do that. So that's one. That's another one that doesn't have to be turned in. I don't care. I just look at roads that could be an opportunity. And then we need something for our own county, which Linda's gonna work with, so.
For our local road improvement or town road improvement project.
Right.
So on September 25th, we are meeting with our highway commissioner, and we need to identify the project, and we need to have a draft program application ready to submit, because he's going to go through everything online. So, we need to identify.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, that's my understanding anyway, that he would be going through the various projects with us. So we need to identify a project, what kind of project we want, whether it's pavement replacement, reconditioning, resurfacing, reconstruction, or something else. I'm looking for my draft and I can't seem to find my, here we go. Or structure, as in bridge or whatever. And then, the length and the surface type and the thickness, and whether we want to do with the whole project or if we're just going to ask for asphalt. And then our substantiation, why we need to do this. So last go around, we used Nelson Lane, which was a perfect candidate because it was traffic for Whitefish Dunes with South Cave Point, or Cave Point being closed off. So that worked out perfect. We did secure 20,000. So I'm looking for a candidate.
So-
West Shore Drive, Park Road, this year it's flooded over the road 3 times. The water has sat on the road up to 6 inches. Right after you turn the corner of DW or there is no culverts to get the water underneath the road to the other side of the road. They just did a culvert farther down the road where they're gonna pave half of it this year apparently. And then the other half south of there, they're gonna pave next year. And they had some flooding on that one, and I think they solved, I don't know if they solved it, they might have, by putting a culvert through the road and cleaning out the ditches. The county did, the city did, I don't know who does that. But on the closest to Clark Lake Road coming down there, about a block in, it floods over with every inch of rain we get. And there's no ditches, no nothing, it just flows. That, you guys are familiar, because they put a sign up down there that says airline tours and Dave's tree cutting service, one of his friends owns property in there, and that's where all the water goes across.
I don't see that on our 4, 5, or 6
It's
rating
not.
sheet, but we did look at it on the road tour
But I've been.
to identify as a future project.
As a road, but nothing else. There's
West
nothing-
Shore
that's
Drive.
Right.
And the reason I'm bringing it up, because it's stupid if they're gonna pave it next year, and the same thing's gonna.
No, we're not paving it next year.
It's not being paved, okay. They're only paving
Not
half
at
of it
this,
then?
not at this. We
From the
only are
boat
paving.
launch south a couple
I'm
blocks?
totally familiar with all that. I've been over there, I've been doing all that.
Okay.
So At this point in time, it's not being paved. That's not to say it won't change, but right now, only the half from approximately Sylvan View to West Shore. Sylvan View to Town Line, sorry.
Right.
So, and I did the ditching and we did all that other work over there, so I'm familiar with it. And I've talked to the property owners on the area that you expressed right off of
Well,
WD.
the water comes down, Clark Lake Road, and runs right into Grady's property.
Right.
There, so that intersection doesn't flood over, but the water runs in his driveway's always flooded.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, if you start with the class 4 roads, excuse me, the 4 rated roads, you got Lice Road is one, which we looked at when we were out there. Rudy Road is, unfortunately, it's a 4, but I don't know that we would want to make an investment in it. Now, if you wanted to do Sylvan, there's one that either we're gonna chip seal all the way around, or we're gonna try and pave some of it. And that's a mixed bag, but as you know, that whole section of road over there is all busted. It's all alligatored, so next year, at worst case, it's gonna get chip sealed, and if not, if we can do an LRIP, maybe that's a candidate.
Are we talking Sylvan View Court?
Well, there's so many Sylvan views over there.
Okay, so I'm looking at my little map here.
I'm looking at the circular one that runs in front of Huey's
Sylvan View
house, all the
Court.
way around.
Right.
Yes,
So
East
it
and
actually
west.
comes in off of West Shore
right. And then
and goes to West Sylvan.
Yep, so this,
So we go right from West Shore
and we're doing,
to West Sylvan.
well,
That's Sylvan View Court?
yeah, but here, we've done, this piece is being done this year. Remember the intersection to Erdman?
The chip seal.
No, as part of the West Shore project, we're rebuilding the intersection there from Erdman down to West Shore and then around the corner, because it's all busted up.
Right.
So, you recall that, right? Okay, so we're doing that, then this, so that kind of
As
takes,
maintenance?
no, as part of West Shore.
Oh, I thought we identified these 3 roads for paving.
We did, that's
There's
last
more?
year. No, it's actually, excuse me.
There's more?
West Shore is a 2018 project that didn't get done.
Oh, that didn't get done,
That didn't
in
get done
addition
yet.
to this one
Yes.
here.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
Yes, okay, recalling.
All right.
Yep.
So they chip sealed Sylvan View Circle West,
Correct.
from the curve almost to Sylvan View Circle East. That's all been chip sealed this year.
Yep. And so the other opportunity would be to do this portion from basically here around. We could, that whole thing is all busted up.
From West Shore or
Well,
from here?
From just past Erdman.
Okay.
So, because we're reconstructing that section. So that little piece, which is maybe a block, and then around here where Huey lives, so we could pick that up.
That's Sylvan View Circle East.
So part of Sylvan View Court through East Sylvan View Circle and down to West Sylvan View Circle. You said
Yes.
this loop.
Sylvan View Court
Yep.
is
Yep.
just a tiny little
Yeah,
stab going in that side.
Correct.
It's a cul-de-sac.
Do we have a length
But
on
there is
that?
another gravel road off that, where you did it this year, you're going up the hill, that left-hand turn where those homes are.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah,
that's
so
a
that's
private
at Sylvan
road.
View Circle
That's Sylvan View Circle? is that
West,
right?
yes, that's, we did that, we chip sealed that.
No, that's never paved.
No, we're talking about Dunes Court.
Oh, Dunes Court,
is
yeah, go
private.
back in, yeah, it's private.
So are we looking at roughly 2,400 feet?
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
a half a mile?
I don't know what column we're looking at here. We don't have the headers.
Section length. It's the
Oh, you're,
second to the last column.
okay.
So I'm looking at, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my Excel spreadsheet. Which
Well,
has
Amy
a-
could pull that up with the headers and tell
Roughly
us what the...
2,400, 2,500 feet.
It's a good sized chunk of
Is
pavement.
that what you want to go for then?
Sure. Sounds like a good one.
All right. So if I have to list all 3 roads, I don't know if that's gonna fit under the project line, but. And, all right, so now I need some bases.
Are we thinking maybe we should do a road that, like, full-time residents live on a little more, there's more traffic on? Because that's in the middle of nowhere, and it's, I mean, 3 full-time residents up there.
Well, there's more than that, but yeah, I mean, I don't disagree
I
with
don't
that.
believe there's more than 3.
No, that's about it.
I work there every other week.
What, Smith and... That's all right.
You know, you got Paul Stingle on the corner, and there's not a whole lot up there.
And the Huey down the road.
Huey, yeah.
Down the corner.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that those people don't deserve a new road, but yeah, it's not a road that you're gonna be pulling a boat down, or there's a lot of heavy traffic going on.
yeah, I mean,
It's a little more need, the more,
and you go Fish Road or Today Road, you got 1 person or 2 people,
Yep.
so you don't have anything there, and those roads are in terrible shape. But, you know, do you go after those? I don't know. That's why I said licensed only from the perspective that it is a mess down there, but, yeah. The best case, the best it's going to get is a chip seal. That's the best it's ever gonna get unless we get it done some other way. So. No. I don't think we rated town, or, West Shore. That's not on this list, what the remaining portion from WD. Peterson.
Well, Martin,
Well,
I'm
Martin's
looking
down.
at the bottom of
Martin from
page
Walker.
32. Martin, right,
from Cherry
from,
to Walker.
okay, from Walker down the hill, and we eventually end up at Bluff Drive. That is getting in pretty rough shape. It is rated a 4, and we did identify it as a future project. And it does get quite a bit of traffic. I travel it every single day, but
That's fine too.
it does get a lot of traffic.
It does. Certainly gets
People
more.
kind of use it as a shortcut to get into the city. Like if they're going to Walmart or Econo or the Y, they kind of use that as a shortcut instead of going down Bay Shore.
Yes, that's right. It's getting a lot of truck traffic too, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, that's fine. We can do that in either one. Makes no difference with me. And maybe it's a better option to take it because there is more traffic. We know that. So I'm good with that,
Traffic count does help as far as substantiation.
right?
Blue Martin Road. You're all right, there's a lot more traffic down there than there would be
Yeah.
in Sullivan.
So it would be Martin, go to my map here.
It says from Walker, so it's.
Yeah,
That's Peterson.
I'm hearing that.
All right, so this is,
That's Martin right there.
right, so, let's see, Martin starts right here, I think.
Yep.
From Walker Road, so be
No,
up top of
this
the
is
hill past
Walker.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, East Martin goes
Down
down
the
here.
curve, going up, and then it says to end
Wait,
at
no, I'm confused.
No, East
Where's the
Martin.
one-
East-
Yeah, East Martin,
HH.
it
This-
starts,
Here's Bluff. This is what you're talking about here. Right?
Bluff Drive goes down here. This is East Martin here,
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is East.
And I understand
But
from
where's
talking to
that
some
hill?
neighbors that they're experiencing a lot of truck traffic because they're not going down road.
Yeah, it comes from Dunn, down, Zavoyski's or whatever, down, past Choice and all that, and then ends up down at Bluff Drive right here. So I would say that's, is that a mile?
Sure.
Well, that's.
Gotta be pretty close.
That's, I'll bet it's more than a mile.
If you're gonna start at Walker Road, that's way more than a mile.
Probably a mile just up to the intersection.
It starts at where Walker ends at Dunn.
Mhm.
Yes, where Walker,
Oh, you're starting up, Walker ends right on top of the hill past my house.
Mhm.
Right by that quarry
Right.
there, that's the end of Walker, and then it turns into Martin right there.
it's going,
So it's Peterson Road, comes up to the top of the hill, Bushman's are on your right-hand side where the quarry is.
Yeah.
So as Walker Road comes past backside Cherry Hills, then Martin Road starts right there.
Yep.
Martin Road goes around that curve where the guy
Yep.
just hit the tree there.
past the
Go
old
past.
Choice
Yep.
Cannery, down, curve down the hill, and ends
turns.
up at Bluff Drive. That's the portion that I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
if you start by,
Which we
like,
do
say on
have it
top of, on
rated
the
as
end
a-
of Peterson and Walker,
Peterson and Walker.
that's
right.
that's more than a mile. If you do that whole. It's right here.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta be 2 miles almost.
I'd have to get the length off
We would do
the Pace Whistler rating.
a wedge and overlay, more than likely, I would think is what you'd probably want to go.
So resurface or pavement replacement, I guess that would be called resurfacing,
Resurfacing.
okay?
Otherwise, we'd have to reconstruct it, and that would consume 1.5, 2 miles, that'd consume a huge chunk of what we have.
All right. The thickness might be dictated, but otherwise, are we okay with, what are we doing, an inch and a quarter?
Quarter.
Inch
They
and a
do a
quarter?
wedge and then.
And you
inch
do
and-
want a wedge,
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you always want a wedge.
wedge and overlay. Is it part of our improvement plan?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's listed
because
in
it's
there.
4.
Mm-hmm.
Meet the appropriate standards, yes. Okay, we will want a wedge, we'll want pavement marking, we want driveway joiners.
Need to make mention of the fact that we just took out $1,200 worth of trees on the curve
Yeah, what was
for
that about?
safety.
Trees for
Just
safety.
because someone ran into a hill,
That's-
we had to take trees
That's
out?
on Walker, though.
No, that's
No, it's
Martin.
on Martin.
Martin, Walker,
I'm getting confused because,
on top of the hill where Bushman's live on Peterson Road,
yes, right,
where Walker comes into
That's
that.
Walker.
That's the end of Walker right there. That's the end of Walker Road. Martin Road heads west. That's the start of Martin Road.
but Walker is going
East.
north.
The highway.
Walker goes along the old quarry, the stone quarry,
Right.
goes up around the curve, and that's still Walker.
Oh, you're right, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It doesn't turn
No,
to
you're right.
Martin
Starts
until
on
Dunn.
Dunn Road and
and
Cherry.
Cherry.
Road, and
That's
you're
right.
right. you're
Dunn
right.
and Cherry.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're right. Cherry
Okay,
Road
so
turns
that
in-
maybe-
Cherry Road turns into Martin.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's probably not too much more than a mile.
No.
I don't think it is.
So traffic count, significant, right? We gotta delete the trees.
Yeah, we just widened it, look at it that way.
Significant wear and tear. Daily commuter traffic.
Yeah, that corner's not on there, Dan.
I'll say daily commuters. Okay, I don't imagine we use the safety of bikers, but I don't imagine there's a lot, but safety for motors?
There's
Would
bikers
we
that go up there
wanna-
during the Century Tour, and I believe they go up Cherry Road, don't they? Or do
They do.
skip that?
Would we want to enhance the shoulders at all? To provide for better safety? There's gonna be erosion, I'm trying to think of ways to prevent erosion because it is pretty hilly.
I cannot tell you from memory, is there much of a shoulder there now?
No.
No, there really isn't.
It's all orchard.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's hilly, the only reason I mention that is if you build out the roads, then we have more problems with erosion because of the water runoff
Yeah.
taking it out on us, so you're better off leaving it alone.
Yeah, you're probably right,
I mean,
because we got
it's-
lots of complaints on Bluff Drive, Bluff Court, on the curve there, where all that gravel washed down.
Yeah.
I mean, in a year or two, it's back to normal, but
Takes a
it
while.
does wash. And Peterson washed out too.
Yeah, and we just redid it again. So I'd just leave it.
Okay.
If we enhance it for biker safety, we put a sign up saying no bicycles, road too narrow. That
Yeah.
would be the sign.
Whatever I come up with, I'll run it past you then.
Okay. Sounds fine by me. All right. So, I guess the question though is on
Oh, I'm
the-
sorry.
That's
Could we
all
go
right.
back to that? Was it going to be asphalt only, or shall we leave that up to the highway commission to determine?
I think it-
Sometimes it's advantage to just do asphalt only.
that's what I was gonna say. That's all we would do as a town anyhow.
I'll see what he recommends.
Okay. Well, going back to the grant process. Fleur Road would be one of the projects that we would submit. And anything other, I mean, I can do the Bark Road thing, or any one of these other projects. I mean, who knows what we're gonna get, but we might as well submit 3 and let them reject 2.
You know, you make a very good point earlier. If there's some engineering that needs to go along, we just
Right.
can't, then those are the roads that we ought to think about submitting.
Well, it would end, I'm thinking it would add a little credibility to the request because you have a problem. I don't know.
What's the one up
Can
on
you
top?
submit more roads than they're asking to show that you have a problem? And we'd like these 5 roads to be done.
No, you're only allowed 3 applications.
Just
three,
three
yeah.
on the application.
Yeah, we got that one up on the top by the doctor, that cul-de-sac by the doctor on the end there, I can't think of his name.
Think?
No,
Oh, you're talking about
Malarkey.
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 Yeah, I mean, that's one we need
Oh,
some serious
yes.
engineering on that turnaround thing.
That's,
But that's, I mean, there's
We don't know,
3 houses up there.
well, even that, we
But
have an
that's
issue is
Big
we
engineering, what
don't
we're
know who wants to give us land.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we need to determine the right of way there.
Linda did some more work on it. That's
Yeah, I
probably,
do have that in
that's probably a little
a
too
future
convoluted.
item.
Okay.
All right, so, all right, we'll submit Bark and, for flooding issue, and Plur for, to pave it. You know, here's something, and maybe this isn't a bad idea. I'm thinking out loud, I'm sorry. Any form of transportation project. I have Greg Coulter's coming next month. He's gonna talk to all of us about the Dunes Lake project and the fact that they have enough money now that they're gonna dredge all of it. So,
How much is this gonna cost us?
here's that, let me,
Yeah,
yeah,
the grant.
here's the other side. They have $1.2 million funds in hand, and they're gonna start dredging. So, when I saw the notice, and Greg called ahead of time to let me know what was going on, I sent him back a note, and I said, okay, so here's my problem, and find me some money. As soon as that lake is dredged, every duck hunter and kayaker in the 7-state area is gonna wanna get in there. Duck hunters in particular, which means our parking lot is gonna be too small. So I said to him, find some money, because we have to figure out a way to park these cars, because we do get complaints from people parked on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if it's a stretch or not, and maybe Amy, you can find out, maybe we put some money in because of all this funding to build out that parking lot a little bigger. Because I don't want it to cost us any money, to your point, John.
Yeah.
And that's what I said to Greg, and Greg actually kind of said, well, I don't think he'd have a hard time with that, but I don't know.
Every time we touch that place, it costs us money.
I know.
Are you talking about our parking lot on Heverly Road?
Yeah,
So
we just
how-
built.
So do duck hunters park there and take their kayaks into the Dunes Lake?
They can only get 2 in, the trailers.
Why wouldn't we pursue having,
Oh, and the,
acquiring a parcel at the end of Pooler Road for a parking lot?
well, you can't get into Dunes Lake there. It's private.
Well, could we pursue purchasing
You'd have to get the boys.
Doorland Preserve?
Darland Preserve to, because the other thing that I think's gonna happen, I mean, I'm just guessing, but, you know, based on what'll happen there, they're gonna come along at some point and request a ramp access there. Because right now, they run their trailers down sideways into the ditch to unload the boats and everything, and, you know, it's a mud hole. So I fully expect that once that gets developed, we'll get requests to improve that to some kind of basic launch area. I don't know, but I'm anticipating that. I don't know if that would qualify or not, but
Well,
I think we'll have a problem with it.
it said new projects, and it does have transit capital and facility projects. I would think our parking lot constitutes a facility.
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know, I'm sure they, unless you have something else too. Well, I'll tell you what, Amy's going to go through the webinar and see what you find out, see if the parking lot might be an option, or the, whatever, I don't know. Yeah, anybody else have any other street that they would put on the list as an alternative? I mean, we don't have a lot, too many of them that are identified as.
Nope, that'd be good.
Cinnamon Court?
No. Nobody lives on that yet.
I know. That's the only other gravel one in the town, other than Stager, but we would never do that one.
Okay.
All right, we'll see. If you have an idea, holler. Otherwise, I'll think about these two and possibly the parking lot, depending on what feedback we get. All right, Linda, you're okay for the moment?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to the financial reports, so try and get through this meeting here. You have the account balances as of August 31st, and you have the budget versus actual January through August of 2019. And you also have the transactions list by date, all in your hands. And Amy, do you have any comments with respect to the financials?
So we paid our fourth quarter fire dues to the city of Sturgeon Bay. We're almost to 100% of our special assessment revenues. And the expenses for the newsletter came in under budget, about $700. Our 2020 budget workshop session is scheduled for October 14th. That's Monday at 5:30.
Okay.
What did we budget for West Shore for the construction?
Right.
Because we're at 212,000 with Peterson, Forest, and Clark Lake, and I can't remember what.
Oh, that was 8, that was have this out of order, so if I do, apologize. Wisconsin Towns Association, if you saw the article about cybersecurity and technology in the newsletter, I've turned this over to Chad, and I've asked him to come back and give us some recommendations, which may entail a couple different changes. Windows 7, which Amy is using, is going out of support. We have an issue with our air conditioning and heating control being run on Windows XP, which is long time gone. We have some problems with that, so Chad's been involved in all of that stuff. We're gonna put it into the budget and we're gonna have to put some money aside, and I should have some estimates from him on what to do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Our technical services
Right.
department head attended some cybersecurity education. It was sponsored by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. I don't know if you listened to that webinar or not, but even though it was sponsored by the Elections Commission, it did entail a lot of security and cybersecurity. And as Mr. Rohr said, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yep.
So
We
we
have
definitely
some-
should be paying attention to it.
We have some issues here in the town that we have to address, and so I just threw that in there just so you had some idea, if you weren't aware of it, what's up.
I think it's interesting that according, and I'm not sure exactly how to read these analytics, but that according to our analytics, we had 1,582 users spoke English, 36 spoke Chinese, 33 were Korean. I don't know how they calculate it. I don't know if it's country of origin or what, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
The Great Lakes grant thing, that basically goes to the conversation that I just had and the one that I had with Greg Colthurst about what to do. And this announces the funding for that project. He'll come and tell you more. I'm gonna have to get a bell.
Since last summer, the clerk and I have talked about taking a kayak into Dunes Lake. So I reached out to Greg Colthurst to see if that was still an opportunity before it gets too cold. And he said, sure, actually next week was good for him, but it's not good for me. So if he put a tour together, anyone interested should let Amy know, and maybe we could still accomplish it yet this fall. I don't know. I don't want to be freezing though.
It ain't that bad. I was in the water this morning. Got the buoys out.
Greg
Okay,
would probably loan us a few kayaks.
there you go. The Bay Lake dues report is in there, pretty much what we covered last month. Notice of a riprap being installed by the Browns from Oak Park. Notice of a timber cutting, and a couple of those. And that's everything in correspondence this month. Announcements, Sevastopol's Historical Society will be talking about the Stevenson family at 6:30 p.m.
Tomorrow
I
night.
was gonna say, there's no date in here.
Tomorrow night, oh,
Tomorrow, Tuesday, September 17th.
17th.
Right here.
Man.
6:30 p.m.
This is-
Public's invited.
Got a little
Refreshments.
piece of paper there.
No, we get a lot of amended agendas. Okay, maybe I'm using the wrong one, too. All right, any rate, comprehensive plan open house is Tuesday, September 24th at 6 p.m. Budget work session, Monday, the 14th at 5:30.
Park and Rec.
Comprehensive plan public hearing, Thursday, October 17th at 6 p.m. Oh, that's right, we
Right,
selected that
we had
date,
to have
we
an
have 30
open house,
days.
and then we have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
And I noticed that has been published, so.
And it had to be within 30 days of the open house or 30 days in
It
advance?
had to be, you had to notice and publish at least 30 days in advance.
Okay, all right. Next meeting is October 21st at 7 p.m.
And if you'd like to say that the Park and Rec Committee meeting is this Wednesday,
Right. Wednesday at 5:30.
5:30 PM.
Yeah, all right. So we come to the best part of the meeting, and my friend John always likes to make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Mark. I would recommend we do not support this motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.